Welcome to Alex and DJ Watch a Doc. I'm DJ. That's Alex. And this week, we watched a doc, and now we're going to talk about it. And the doc that we watched was Seaspiracy.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's been a hot doc for a while. We're a little late to it, but it's still pretty relevant.
Well, we're now a fresh new hot show, so
That's right.
we got to pick up, the little bits left over from the last year.
Exactly. And before I even move on into that, 2 orders of business. First one is next week, just to get it out of the way in case we forget at the end.
Sure.
We're going to be watching Pele.
Pele or Pele?
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 No, it's Pele. I think Pele. I think you're right. Pele?
I think so. No disrespect to Portuguese speakers. He's Brazilian.
Yes.
So no disrespect to the Portuguese language if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But soccer legend Pele. It's on Netflix. So watch that next week and join us while we talk about it.
Yes, and not in Portuguese either.
Ooh, is that how you say it? Like in a Portuguese? Portuguese?
Yeah, Portuguese.
Oh, wow. You're good at that. You're good at accents.
I'm good at accents. I have no knowledge of the words.
Okay, that's fine. You can fool people with that.
Yeah.
Second order of business. We said we would talk about comments that people left. So leave a comment on YouTube or on our podcast page, wherever you want to leave it. We're on Instagram as well at Alex and DJ Watch a Doc. But we've only gotten one so far because we just released episode 1 today as of this filming, or yesterday rather. But my buddy Ryan Bondi, a good friend, sent me a message, and I have to address this. In our first episode, Lucy the Human Chimp, I said that I thought I could take a chimp one-on-one, like I could beat a chimp up. Not that I want to, but if push came to shove, I said. He messaged me and said, no way in hell you could take a chimp.
No, and I agree with him, and I agreed with him, in anticipation of him saying that, because I already said that he would wipe the walls with you.
You specified there 4 to 5 times.
Lucy specifically.
Well, that offers a whole different moral dilemma, because you can't fight a girl when they're human. Am I going to fight a female chimp? I wouldn't feel right about that. I'd only fight a male chimp.
You would be fighting for your life.
I'd let that female chimp kill me because I'm a chivalrous man, Alex.
Chivalrous sapien?
Chivalrous sapien,
I don't know.
yeah.
I want to make it like more like a species.
I got you. My chivalry extends to everybody in the primate family.
Is that right?
That's right, yeah. But a female tiger can get it. You know what I'm saying?
I don't even know how that means.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't. I'm not attracted to female tigers because of speciation, a term I learned from you in that episode.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Seaspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
But just before we move on, leave a comment about this episode, any episode you've seen. We'd love to talk to you.
We would. Him particularly. He needs to talk to people.
I need you so bad. Seaspiracy is a movie by the same producers who made Cowspiracy, which was a big movie in, I think, 2014. Kind of made a big splash. Now this is their follow-up, Seaspiracy, on Netflix. And the basic premise of the movie is basically what we're doing to the world's oceans and aquatic, marine wildlife.
Mm-hmm. And if there's some kind of a conspiracy involved.
Ooh, I wonder if they brainstormed, like if they almost called it Conspiracy SEA on the end.
They probably did, and then realized, but if you say it, then people just think it's about a conspiracy. But Seaspiracy, and plus Cowspiracy, it's going from the same
branding.
He loves the spiracies of all kinds.
He does. So that's the movie, and the one thing we talked about is we felt so much pressure with DeLorean to go chronologically, and this was like a James Bond movie, the amount of locales they jumped to and from. So I don't even know if we need to feel that much pressure to go along with this chronologically. We'll try our best, but the general zeitgeist of the movie I feel is the most important that we're going to capture here.
Sure.
But to start off, they did start in Taiji, the cove.
Right.
In Japan.
But can I actually, because prior to that, because some of the issues I have with the documentary was that he, I understand he's personalizing it, he's trying to tap into our emotions so that way it has more of an impact, which it did. That's the thing is I have issues, but I also think that in the end, I think it was effective in that it is in the consciousness for a lot of people. But there was, in the beginning, he started off by talking about himself and how he used to always love dolphins and whales. As though, like, I was like, doesn't everybody? Like, every kid? But then he's talking about himself, like, as though he was always a passion of his. And there's footage of him on the beach.
You don't believe it was him?
I think it was, like, you could see that
stock footage?
Yeah, it looked like an actor kid.
The one thing that was weird about it was they went back to when he was a kid, but they made it like shaky cam and put the year in the corner.
Yeah, that's right.
But the year was like 2005 or something because he's a relatively young dude. Or maybe 95. Whatever the year was, it was like even if that was really footage of you, the shaky cam is an added effect.
Yeah, it was all, that's the thing. I think the funny thing is, though, he never says, that's me on the beach.
Yeah.
So, they have to, that's the thing. This is not audio. They have to show some kind of pictures.
True.
So I kind of understand that, but I did sort of feel like it just felt like, okay, here we go. Already we're seeing footage. It's like it's kind of in that docudrama territory.
And the personal element is like, okay, imbue it with your own personal story so that we do feel the attachment right away. But this is such a global issue that you're right away establishing. You don't necessarily need to make it that emotionally connected to you, in my opinion.
Well, that's it. I think it's tricky because, I mean, making it personal is how it makes it feel like it's maybe more authentic than just trying to be emotional about something that's on the other side of your experience. But then there's more of that, like, as it progresses. There's more of, like, him. It felt like there's moments where he was making it a bit about himself. He was sort of making himself look like, I will deal with it later, but like putting himself in danger and all that sort of thing. There was a bit of that to add to the drama. It did feel like things were hyped up slightly. I was thinking of like Michael Moore and that sort of thing, where it's also trying to appeal to you to feel perhaps some rage for what's going on.
Well, man, what's this guy's name? Ali, I forget his last name. Kabiri, something like that. It's
Ali, like Zabrini or something. Something Italian or something like that.
Yeah, the thing is, I like Michael Moore a lot. I know a lot of people wouldn't agree with me on that. Yeah. I feel his passion a lot, and I've never seen Roger and Me, going back to the late 80s when he was younger. So he's always been a little older. I guess Bowling for Columbine, he was probably in his 30s. But he's always seemed old enough to not be naive. So when he does inject himself in the story, I see that he's at least trying to be nuanced about it. I didn't get that feeling from Ali.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a very important subject he tackled, and I don't want to diminish, because he did put himself in danger, and he clearly did have passion for the subject. But I found myself not necessarily liking him. I don't want to be critical, because I appreciate that he tackled this subject that I think is very important to talk about. I feel he went overboard with the conspiratorial tones.
For sure.
And the danger that he was in. Not to say he wasn't in danger, but I think it could have been even more pronounced if he wasn't playing Jason Bourne music in the background. But I understand you're making a media product, so. Yeah,
there's a bit of that. That's the thing I feel like I'm separating some of the subject matter from the little bit of self promotion of it too. Like I separate that. Like there are aspects of it, but even then, I mean, as we can get into it, even like the factual aspects of it, those have been called into question, some of those things as well. So he was definitely trying to make a point and would maybe use certain facts that weren't even necessarily current facts to use that to make his point.
And I think we both did a little reading after, and some of the facts were debunked widely.
Yeah.
But that happens with a lot of documentaries, especially when they're attacking large industries and governments and NGOs. So whether or not the facts are all 100% true, still a very important movie and a topic that needs to be discussed.
I'll accept that.
So he starts out. Well, before he even gets into Taiji and the Cove, he just shows all these images after he talks about how much he's loved marine life and everything. He starts showing all these huge stats about the amount of whales and dolphins and sea life that are showing up dead on the shore, stranded, with plastic in their stomachs.
Yes.
That's kind of like the opening montage that's just showing you what an epidemic we're seeing and how brutally these animals are dying just from plastic.
Yes.
That kind of sets the tone for the movie.
Right. Yeah, I do remember actually, even when he was also like, he was talking about like, trying to use like, it's like reusable cutlery as a thing, rather than. But then again, he was like picking up, as he's like on the phone, he's picking up things off the beach that are clearly planted there. It's like there's like Nemo doll.
Yeah, I even found Nemo. He says
it was like a brand new Nemo doll that showed no wear of sun or sand.
Oh yeah, there's just a PA off to the side like rubbing shoe polish on that Nemo to give it a little bit of that, weathered look.
Yeah, that's right. So it was just like, I as I was watching this and picking out all these little moments. Of course, my wife next to me reminds me that I remove the joy out of everything that I see.
I mean, if we're going to be talking about this stuff, the part of it is we want to watch it critically. We can't just people are showing us facts. We can't just accept all of them to be true.
Yeah.
The medium is the message, which is one of the few quotes I know about media. So I'm going to probably use it at least once every episode. But
do you know who said that?
Marshall motherfucking McLuhan. That's her. Triple M, baby.
Yeah, you got it.
But he starts with that, and then so let's move on to the Cove, because he goes to Taiji, the Cove, which is an infamous slaughtering ground for dolphins in Japan.
Yeah.
And I know it's infamous because there was a movie made about it in 2009 called The Cove, starring Rick O'Barry, who used to train Flipper. And then became like a huge dolphin advocate because of his love for Flipper. The Cove is an amazing documentary, and I watched that in 2009 or 10. I was young and naive and idealistic, in my early 20s. It made a huge impact on me. I had a blog at the time. I wrote a whole blog post about the Cove. I was Ali in this movie, being like, I'm going to change the world, telling people what they needed to do. And now I'm a bit more apathetic. You could call it realistic, but I'll say apathetic. But the thing that blows my mind is Rick O'Barry is in this movie, and he's talking to him about the Cove, but they don't make any mention of the Cove.
Right.
I just found it it boggled my mind that there was no mention of at least in passing, Rick O'Barry's an expert on this because he made a very famous documentary about it.
That's weird, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't realize that. And it's why not give the guy a little promo? You know what I mean? Or is it is he trying to hog the spotlight to himself? This Ali character.
He did it a lot. I mean, we'll talk about other people, but Paul Watson's in it, the founder of Sea Shepherd.
Yes.
Calling Paul Watson just the founder of Sea Shepherd is like. I was trying to think of an analogy in the shower earlier. I'm like, that's like calling Michael Jackson one of the founding members of the Jackson 5. It's like, I mean, I think there's a bit more to the biography than that. He left Greenpeace because they weren't violent enough for him. He was like, we're just keeping an eye on these corporations. He started Sea Shepherd. Sea Shepherd rams fishing boats. Right. They drive them ashore. He was wanted for attempted murder in Costa Rica. He had to flee to Germany. He's Canadian originally. He's got this crazy story, and then he just shows up in this documentary, founder of Sea Shepherd, a few little kind of anodyne quotes. I'm like, let's give the man some. I know you're trying to cram a lot into an hour and a half, but you're talking to some legends here.
Right.
I don't know.
You're feeling there's some disrespect here.
Maybe.
Respect your violent activists.
I mean, yes, exactly. The ones who came before you, he did show his respect. He talked about how he loved Jacques Cousteau growing up, and even, what's her name? Miss Earl, who played
as a hero of his. I didn't buy it. Was it really a hero? Did he even know who she was before he started this documentary?
Sylvia Earle, I think is her name.
Sylvia,
yeah, I know, I agree. But then maybe we're
hero. Oh, and I used to always be. I just feel like again, he's got to tell. He wants to tell a story. Otherwise, what does he say to? How does he insert himself into all of this? Why is he telling this story? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes that, right? It's a lot of, especially now. It's always about why? Who are you? Why are you telling this story? People want to know.
Yeah.
It's all those millennials and Gen Zs. They want to make everything personal.
Yeah, there's a lot less shame nowadays in narcissism. and injecting yourself into a story.
Thanks, social medias.
Social media. Hopefully that catches on. Alex came up with that. That's social media.
Hopefully, I don't know if I even want to hear it again.
You know, if that gets popular, you know, you'll be so narcissistic about it. You're talking trash about millennials, but you know, you'll be like, I came up with social media.
Exactly. I'll hear a couple of them walking by, like, hey, guess who came up with that one?
Yeah, show some respect. Yeah, I'm the Paul Watson of social media.
Dear Lord. But also, I'll very quickly, as I'm saying it, get very annoyed by it.
That's a problem with catchphrases. Is when people keep using them, I'm like, aren't you sick of that?
Yeah. That's exactly it.
Another thing is, I think that woman that was with Ali the whole movie, especially in the Cove when they showed her, when they were saying they were in so much danger from the Japanese police because you're not allowed to film in Taiji, all this stuff. Not to say, I mean, they seem to be both equal partners in the endeavor, but if you were in that much danger, why are you bringing her?
Yeah, I think it's his wife.
I think it is. He said wife, right?
Did he? I
think so. Wife, yeah. And I think she had production credits on it too, so she should have been there. It just seemed like I don't know. I guess it is dangerous. The movie The Cove made it seem like it was really dangerous to film too. Actually, They went really clandestine in that movie. They were filming like with secret underwater cameras, and that was kind of the first the world had heard about this. So I was actually a bit saddened to see that 11 years later, because the way The Cove seemed, it made such a splash. Didn't mean to make that pun, but here we are. I thought, in my idealistic mind 10 or 11 years ago, that movie would cause the Japanese fishers, murderers, whatever you want to call them, you know, unregulated dolphin murderers from not at least maybe moving to another cove or something. Yeah. So the fact that that's still happening all these years later was a little bit sad. I do believe there was danger there, but boy, did they play it up.
Yeah, of course they did. Well, and they did it a few times too. There's other moments I'll maybe talk about later. Save those for later. But there are some other moments that were like that.
What's another moment?
There was this moment where it was sort of like where they wouldn't talk to him. There was this interview with, where was it? I can't remember where he was in an office, and they would refuse to take the interview. And then you see sort of the panicked looks kind of from. And he said something about like, can you believe that they wouldn't take an interview for me, a guy with a jean jacket and a hoodie and a beanie, like a knit cap on. You wouldn't take from some millennial. They wouldn't take a legitimate organization. Won't take an interview from a legitimate journalist that looks like me. Can't they see that I have a nice looking camera?
The entitlement.
It's just so funny because it's like, you know what? Maybe put on a suit, huh? Think that these are maybe your mom and dad, that maybe they'd like to see you looking a little more professional if they're going to take an interview for you. You show up like that all casual? Come on.
To be devil's advocate, though, why should you only be taken seriously in a suit?
Exactly. I agree with you. But know your audience.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the suit, I would even argue for your own sake, if you want to really, penetrate these places. What's the word I'm like? Penetrate, pierce the corporate kind of shield they hide behind. Sure. A suit would help you.
That's what I'm saying.
It would be the ultimate subterfuge.
I'm just saying that, like if you want to appeal to these people,
speak their language.
Yes, I mean, look. The fact is that he probably misrepresented himself anyway to get certain interviews because it was what I've even heard other people talk about as gotcha journalism, where so clearly he's saying this is about one thing, and then he starts asking the penetrating questions.
A couple people renounced their interviews after.
Of course, yeah. Well, I mean, particularly that one woman that was pretty funny, where she was sort of like, I have an event to go to. She even had an attitude. She even had that kind of voice. I have an event to go to. I can't. Can you turn off the cameras?
Yeah.
And that was just like, ooh, you didn't come off well. I mean, the other thing too is that a lot of people realize they see a guy like that and they think like, some YouTube video that he's making, who cares? Not realizing they're about to be on one of the more popular documentaries on Netflix.
Yeah. The one woman who renounced her interview, actually, I'm like, but what you said was so clear that I don't know how you would think that your words were twisted. She was a woman, I forget her name. She was a professor, and she was talking about how ridiculous it is and absurd that governments subsidize the fishing industry. Mm-hmm. And she said the amount of subsidies for the fishing industry is 50 billion around the world. At 30 billion, it was a huge number. And she said, which is crazy because they estimate that we would only need 30 billion to end world hunger.
Right.
So if we could just move that money over. And she said that. And then I read in an article that she said her words were taken out of context. But I was like, how? Those words are really clear.
Yeah. I always think that's a go-to when you don't feel like you're represented the way that you wanted to, is just say it was taken out of context. I mean, it's a thing you say. You know, it's like a thing you say, like you say, like the thing you say, like thoughts and prayers. It's just a thing you say.
Yeah, but I do understand what she's saying, because let's say they talked for an hour and she was like, no, they need subsidies. It really helps. But she was saying all this good stuff. And then he said something like, yeah, but let's say devil's advocate. Did you see any reason with subsidies? And she was like, okay, sure, devil's advocate. And then he cuts there and she's like, we could end world hunger with this money. And then that's the only part he uses. Right, I get that.
Right. That's a real good... that's a good warning, is that if anybody uses devil's advocate on an interview on camera, just repeat the words. Say, well, devil's advocate. Actually, how do you do that? You got to blend it together so that way they can't make a clean edit.
Yeah, just to be devil's advocate, I think that you... and also, I think that I might be stealing this from a comedian I saw, but why would you ever want to advocate for the devil?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I don't know where I heard that, but now we're just getting into stand-up,
okay,
bitch,
yeah,
huh?
No, I could start quoting friends, but...
bluefin tuna sells in the fish market for $3 million. That blew my mind.
Yeah, I got to try some of that stuff. This must be great.
Yeah, what's the difference between bluefin and like regular like albacore or?
That's why I got to try it.
There's only 3% remaining of their original population.
I got to get in there before they're gone.
Got to bring them down to 2%.
No, I don't want to bring them down, but I mean, like if they're almost gone, I got to get a little taste before time's up.
Before the camera started rolling, you told me that like you thought I kind of presented myself as trying to be smart.
Yeah.
And I said, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. Up until I was maybe 25 years old, maybe 23 years old, I thought the size of a tuna can was how big tuna fish were. I thought tuna was a really small fish.
And also cylindrical.
Yeah, exactly.
You thought it was...
Plopped it right in. You thought it was... Just spun through the ocean.
You thought it was a fat disc with eyes.
But I really did think it was like a minnow or something. It blew my mind when I saw how gigantic
I'm not going to pretend like... I don't remember how old I was, but I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't surprised that tuna was a large...
Oh, okay.
Very large fish.
Did you hear the one guy in Seaspiracy call them fishes? Pronouncing fish plural, fishes?
But I believe that if there are different species of fish, you can call them fishes.
Really?
I think that could be the case. Seriously.
Okay.
It's like peoples. The peoples.
When do you use peoples?
The peoples of the First Nations.
You say that?
Well, if I'm around the right peoples, I might.
Power to the peoples.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so we're kind of joking. We're having a good time right now. I was devastated at many points during this movie.
It was brutal. I'm not going to eat as much fish. Am I going to pretend like I'm not eating? I'm going to start eating fish. But I'll tell you what, if I'm going to be honest with myself, I realize I'm cutting off your point here.
Go ahead.
I'm not a huge fish fan. It's a big loss for me. Fish was something I felt like I should eat because it was healthy. Now I can feel rightly, sanctimoniously, self-righteously, like I'm on some kind of anti-fish diet now.
Yeah, not because you don't particularly enjoy it, but because you're a crusader for the environment.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, you've always loved fish, man. You went to SeaWorld when you were young.
Look, I'll miss a tuna sandwich. Okay, I like a tuna melt. But fish never appealed to me, and why would it?
I love fish.
See, I never understood that. Chicken, you can get. I understand why people like chicken. Everything chicken. If it's chicken,
I'll take salmon over chicken any day.
If there's a chicken restaurant, I'm like, I got to check it out, because if they specialize in chicken, that's got to be some good chicken. Whereas fish, by its very nature, the adjective of fish is fishy, and that's negative. Something's not good if it's fishy.
Chicken would have an adjective too if it wasn't so awkward to say chickeny.
Chickeny? If something's chickeny, I'd be like, really? Can I have a taste?
Now, fishy is deliciously.
Fishy.
No, I love. Well, as you know, I haven't eaten meat or fish or anything for a year and a half now.
Sure.
I miss fish more than chicken.
Oh yeah, see, you're different than I. But it's just strange. It's not like you come from a seafaring village.
No. But, fish is everywhere too, as we see in this movie. There's a lot of fish. People...
I don't know.
But here's the part that I was going to say devastated me.
Okay.
Many parts did.
Sure.
Chopping off those shark fins. Just shark after shark. Chopping off those fins. I mean, you want to talk about gaining empathy for sharks. Like, sharks are scary, obviously, but man, 50 million sharks a year, they said?
Did they say, but the comparison stat was fun. That people on beaches are killed by, 10 people a year are killed by sharks.
Yeah.
And we kill them it was something like, what was it, $4,000 a minute or something like that?
4,000 a minute, you mean?
It was something like that. It was like 4,000 a minute, something insane.
It's got to be if it's 50 mil a year.
And I thought, man, we're winning. I mean, we're scared of them.
I know. We vilify them so much. Can you imagine the movies they make about humans?
Yeah.
Just like they're all watching in their shark theater in the ocean, just seeing human legs up top and that Jaws music playing.
Yeah. And then so you'd think in their films, whenever they take a human, that's a real hero.
Oh yeah,
a real hero.
Score one for the good guy.
That's what it is.
Well, you know how you know that sharks are really, I don't know the word I'm looking for. Endearing, I'll say, is the one guy who is really vouching for them in Seaspiracy had been attacked by one. He was missing his arm, his leg. That was powerful.
Yeah, no. That definitely, that's what's called, that's Christian forgiveness is what that is. That is serious.
For real.
That's a guy who really knows how to let go and feel the love in his heart towards and love towards is it cold-blooded?
I think they're cold-blooded. But there was one animal that I think it might have been the bluefin tuna that was warm-blooded, they said, and that was part of what made it. I don't know. They mentioned one. I think a shark's cold-blooded, though.
But you remind me when you said that you felt for the sharks getting their fins. Do you remember that one scene when they're talking about whether fish can feel? And I think it was what was her name again? The hero.
Yeah,
Cynthia.
Earl is her last name. I think Sylvie
Earl. So I think it was Sylvie Earl. She even said something about how people assume that they don't have feelings and that they're. But then again, they have apparently a line of nerve endings or whatever, so they can feel the minute changes in water. So that's why they can move so beautifully together in complete unison. And she's talking about that and that type of sensitivity. But then also there was a shot of as the people were just some butchering some fish. There's a tank of fish just watching it behind them, and they're just all up against the glass. All of them just sort of swimming around.
Feeling the pain.
That was going, oh, no.
She said there's evidence that they can feel that's my friend.
That was sad to see them watching one of their buddies and thinking, I think I'm next.
Well, she made a good point that we tell ourselves they can't feel anything, so we feel okay. Her name's Sylvie Earl, by the way.
That's right.
And another thing, I read an article after that really hit home for me. By the way, I said I haven't eaten any animals in a year and a half, and that means cheese and I'm off of it.
Sure.
I'll never eat it again. I don't miss it at all. I can't imagine eating it. I'm not trying to get sanctimonious or anything. I don't push this on people when I talk to them. But since we're talking about this topic, I almost cried so many times during this movie when they showed that grin at the end on the
with the whales
on the Faroe Island.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man! I cried at that part. I mean, call me whatever you want, a soft. What's the word I'm looking for?
Little daisy-skirted, fancy, little soft little weepy boy.
That's right. That's what I was looking for.
I'm just trying to help you with words.
For real, though. I mean, I understand people eat animals, and it's a natural part of the world since we've been here. I'm not saying I don't understand it, but I don't want to do it anymore. And that scene really got me. And there was also, this article I read said we call it seafood.
Yes, that's right.
so that we don't have to think about it.
Marine wildlife, but it's actually just called
seafood.
It's the food from the sea. It's meant for us to eat. Yeah, that's actually. It's funny how you just get used to these common words, and yet it's exactly so disrespectful.
You're at an aquarium, like, look at all this seafood. Yeah. No, those are animals. I don't know. That grinned, and I really respected that whalers. We're clearly not going chronologically here because this is one of the final scenes of the movie. I know. But that whaler describing his point of view, he was like, well, you get as much meat from one whale as 2,000 chickens. Sure. So if you're going to eat meat, don't be a hypocrite if you're eating chicken. Sure. Just because I have to actually stab this whale and kill it. It's still... It's the meat that I eat, and
it's true. And so is it one life, more important than 2,000 lives? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, chicken lives, yeah, they're pretty worthless. No, I it's just some dark humor for you. No, I actually, but I do, I'm actually, I am moved by these things, and I do constantly think, I think so impotent. I think I should do something. But I want to get some recipes from you. Because my only problem is I always feel like I don't know. It's like I need to make sure that I eat something that actually feels filling, and I think I got a real gas problem, so that beans aren't working for me.
That could be an issue. There's a lot of beans involved. And all sorts of legumes, though, not like necessarily just lentils.
Well, I saw a doctor recently. We had a chat. But anyway, I don't want to get into the details. But I was, as I was reading and listening to things and all that, I heard a discussion where people were saying, like, this is not entirely just an issue of well, now we just have to switch to a plant-based diet, and that's going to fix everything. Yeah. Because now that becomes the main industrialized food source, and then there's all kinds of problems with that, and the fact that there's the land and the water that's involved in growing and these kinds of any kind of crop, that also has some issues. So switching to plant isn't necessarily going to solve all the problems. No. I think it's more of an issue like where at least you feel like it's it's less cruel, but in terms of like solving the problems of the earth, it's not necessarily a fix-it.
I agree with you. I just think most people, and I include myself in this camp up until recently. Mm-hmm. Actually, I got to tip my hat to a good friend of mine, Leon Etienne. I worked on a cruise ship with him a year and a half ago. Him and his lovely girlfriend, Chelsea, they're both vegan. Mm-hmm. And they turned me on to it. I was having these thoughts that I didn't want to eat it anymore, and they just talked to me about it openly. So that's why I'm kind of like, I'll talk about it if people want to hear it. Sure. Like I said, I don't like shoving it down people's throats, but I think most people, and myself included, I used to eat meat and not even think about the fact it was an animal. Sure. Or what the process was to get it from a farm or wherever to my mouth. Not farm, that's really idealistic, from some, conveyor belt or whatever. So I think as long as you're trying to be conscious about these things, but that's also an issue with the movie that some people have, and I can see it, is that at the end, the last 10 minutes are like, go plant-based. It's kind of like, that'll solve everything. It's right. Like, well, and this is out of my range of political theory, but I was reading an article about how, like, that's a classic neoliberal mentality. Like, you can make the choice, and then that will affect the whole, let the market make the decisions. And sure. But it's like, no, it really does depend on these governments and the people in charge to make these decisions, because, a bunch of people watching this movie and going vegan isn't going to move the needle too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't hurt the fact that, like, people, as long as there is some active aspect to it. I think that the issue seems to be, like, first of all, there in terms of the reactions to the documentary and what the problems with some of the facts is one thing, right? There's that whole thing of that there was like a study that was about the fact that by 2048 the oceans will be empty if we keep going at this rate, and that was from a 2006 study that even the guy who wrote the study had already debunked it. Yeah. And so, but the whole idea is like, okay, well, if it's 2079, then it's still moving in that same direction. So even those facts are forgivable in some ways. He's trying to make a point, and there's only a few of them. But there is the fact that people there are, small villages that are fishing villages. That's not really the issue. It's industrial fishing. It's grand scale. Like it's same thing. Everything industrial. Everything that's like corporate and industrial seems to be the problem, right? It's industrial farming. It's industrial fishing.
Large scale. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And corporate, industrial, and in most cases, I mean, the world powers. So, like, mainly Western, but you can lump China. There were also some articles that said this movie had a pretty strongly anti-Asian bias. Sure. If you really examine it, like, China didn't come off well, Japan didn't come off well, Thailand didn't come off well. Yeah. Sure, he went to Scotland as well and the Faroe Island, but there's something about...
And there was a picture of, like, that Captain Highliner kind of guy with, on the cover of the box of the fish sticks box, as though he's the guy doing the fishing.
Yeah.
That was about as close as it came to like our blue washing of the.
We got to talk about that. Yeah. He just threw blue washing out there like that's a term we all know. Oh yes, blue washing, yes. But the one thing that you mentioned, industrial kind of corporate, large scale, but also there's they touched on it, but like the word that's coming to mind is kind of like colonialism, like. Africa was getting fucked because their waters were getting plundered by these European and Chinese boats that were coming in. So these small fishing villages that could have a sustainable fishing, pattern year after year, now they're screwed. And now you see these guys in Liberia in the one pretty moving scene pulling up in a canoe in the middle of the open water, telling them they're hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. And also that aspect too, where they talked about what they would call blood shrimp. Where it was the idea of a lot of people being forced to work as slaves, essentially. And so
that was Thai people, right? That was a country they said mainly.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And but it's I sort of think of like all these issues, and I always feel like a lot of these things kind of still come back to there's a lot of us. It's like if we keep. We keep depleting all these resources, whether it's the ocean. It's because there's so many of us to feed, and we just keep making more. People keep having children, and Westerners who keep having children. Maybe we just need to take a break from having kids for a while.
But the good news is fertility rates are going down.
Yeah.
The bad news is that's probably from some terrible environmental reasons that we don't know.
Well, that was the other thing too. That was plastic, exactly. That's bringing up plastic right there. The fact that part of the there's this whole thing about the plastics in the ocean, and he was talking about the things like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and how apparently he was saying that it's not so much consumer plastics as it is fishing nets. It's all the fishing nets, but that was a sort of debunked fact, and that there's a difference between the floating plastic and the plastic that goes to the ground, and then it's also the plastics that end up in the water system that become like microplastics that are ingested and they go to the bottom, and then they're eaten by basically they go right from the I saw this microbiologist I guess marine biologist talking about the going through the food chain, like starting from plankton and then larger fish and like a grouper, and then eventually it gets to like a mammal like a dolphin or whatnot, and it kind of moves through. But if you have like a bigger fish, for example, it just becomes more concentrated, the microplastics. So it becomes a matter of, I think there was a doctor who said that you end up getting the ratio of nutrients to toxins in a fish.
That doctor who mentioned that is he's like in the plant-based diet community. He's like revered, Dr. Michael Greger, I think.
What's it called? Like How Not
to Die. And we have his cookbook called the How Not to Die cookbook. So you said you need recipes? That's a good one for that. Yeah. Shout out to him. I forget his name, but How Not to Die.
His name is Greger.
It is Greger.
Jewish guy.
Yeah.
Greger is a noisemaker that you use during Purim.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if that's what his name means, and how would I know that? I'm just an Italian guy. Why would I know that?
Alex Nasbamio.
Yeah.
The BPAs, the mercury, everything. And then there's that myth that you can only get your omega-3 fatty acids from fish. And they're like, well, the fish are getting it from algae, so cut out the middleman. That's the one thing about being plant-based. It's actually been, I always was like, but where am I going to get my protein? Where am I going to get, you can get all that. Even like a capsule, you can get omega-3.
Yeah, but where are those capsules coming from? Better be algae.
No, we're not you can get them, the fish one. It's a fish oil one, but that would be a bit hypocritical. Even feeding our cats, we feed them meat. It feels weird.
It must feel very strange.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, right? When you're dealing with a actual strict carnivore, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Make them a vegan?
It's not going to cut it and that's another thing that I'd heard some discussion. It's not in this film, but now we're on the topic of alternatives. Is there is like, they're in the stages now where it's getting close to consumer, to being brought to consumers as is like lab created meat that's actually made of like cells that's like grown in a lab. So
3D printers now.
Exactly. So it's 3D printing a rib steak. And
they're very close to it.
They're close to it. So then, I mean, at first it's going to be expensive, but eventually it'll be cheap enough to the point where, well, if this is pretty good, I mean, am I just eating a real steak just because it's like exotic and I'm doing it for all those shitty reasons or that's the other thing too. People, you think about like eating a certain kind of food because there's like a status symbol. Mm-hmm. So it's a status symbol. There's a status
shark fin
associated with it. And I think like, man, those are the worst people. The people who will like do anything just for the status.
Yeah. But that's why they make the important distinction between vegan and plant-based, because I'm not completely plant-based, so I'll eat like a Beyond Meat burger, but that's not even that good for you. There's a lot of crap in there.
I can feel my stomach rejecting it.
I know. So plant-based is a whole different thing. You don't eat that garbage. You eat plant-based stuff. Yes. So you would eat a bean burger, a black bean burger, something like that.
Sure, and you would want to leave the room about an hour and a half later.
Yeah, I don't care. Who cares about farting, man? I mean, the people around you, but who cares? No, I mean, you're supposed to fart.
No, well, if you talk to my wife, she's lost a lot of sleep in the middle of the night for what I put out. My output is legendary.
Same with my wife. Yeah, I think we should have a fart off sometime. I don't know, but while we were setting up, I went to the bathroom to let one go just so I would.
Oh, that's why I had to go out the front. I was doing it quietly. You couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear. I was doing all kinds of things you couldn't hear.
Oh, Madge farts all the time, and I don't hear. And she's like, that is. I have a whole joke about it, but that is one of the benefits of her being with a hard of hearing dude.
Except that for you, every fart is silent but deadly.
True, but hers don't smell.
Silent but friendly.
Yeah, I got to get my nose checked. Silent but friendly. So the one stat, there were so many stats, and I made a note this week because I was so focused on the stats with DeLorean last week. I was like, chill out, just try to get the basic feeling of the movie. But the one stat they said that blew my mind was that there were a couple, I'll say two. One was in the 1800s, 1 to 2 tons of halibut a day. That's how much they were able to fish. Now it's 1 to 2 tons of halibut a year,
right? Which
is a huge drop off. But the one that really blew my mind, because you always hear about the Amazon and just how much oxygen and carbon, not recycling, photosynthesis, I guess, how important that is in that process. The ocean is the biggest carbon sink on the planet. 93% of CO2 is stored in the oceans and marine vegetation.
Yeah, there was a mention of that too, like the fact that they kind of, and also they take they'll take the carbon, and essentially when they die, and they're essentially sink, literally like a carbon sink where it goes down to the sea.
But and then they trawl all that with their fishing.
Right, that's the thing too. Yeah, the fishing, the trawling fishing, the nets and all that. That's again, I think the sin of this industrial fishing is that it's kind of lazy. It's this idea of just taking a big net and just running it along and pick up whatever it takes, and I'll throw that away, I'll keep this. And
what was it called?
The bycatch.
Bycatch.
Right. Which is another new word, which is like, it's like a byproduct. It's not bycatch, not B, it's BY catch. It's bycatch, a byproduct.
Fish that they didn't mean to catch, and they're just
not like bycatch, not the catch. It's like, sexual preferences go both ways. It's
whatever I can catch, really.
So that's what it is, actually. When you're,
what's funny is there's a little bug
trawling around. Sorry, yes.
There's a bug that's been flying around, and I'm just like, imagine me talking about how much I love animals the last 45 minutes. The hell out of here. Insects I don't give a shit about.
So well, sure, why not? You're not full Buddhist, right? So
it is a weird one though. Insects, it is harder to love them, but I try to not kill them too. Spiders, I feel like spiders are the sharks of the land.
No, I'll try to save a spider because they're usually killing pests anyway.
Exactly, like sharks.
Yeah. But again, pest. What is it to be a pest? What is it? I'll tell you what it is to be a pest. If you're a mosquito, you're dying. That's what it is to be a pest.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you because they're now using me as a food source, and I don't appreciate that.
That's right. Yeah.
So yes, a bycatch is getting into that whole territory of things that are like what they didn't intend to catch. Which was things like dolphins and turtles and that sort of thing, and how much of that. Again, I think I heard that the stats on a lot of these things were not quite accurate. I think for the bycatch, the stats weren't necessarily accurate. Even for the carbon sink thing, I think I'd heard something about the carbon stat not being quite accurate.
Fucking Ali, man, he can't be trusted.
Well, this is it. Well, here's the problem. It's like I still think the end result is good, and I still think these are issues that need to be dealt with, and we clearly are overfishing, and that is the issue. A lot of people will complain that they said that there's no such thing as sustainable fishing, and they were like interviewing people and making it sound like, oh, there's no guarantee that for this dolphin safe tuna, then therefore that label's useless, and all that. But really,
that was important. I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah. But essentially though, the idea that there is no such thing as sustainable fishing, that has been questioned. Again, I'm not crazy about fish, so I feel be on the safe side. Don't eat any fish. And also just the fact that overfishing is actually really the issue. And so it's like the idea of overfishing and not allowing the fish to reproduce, to sustain,
replenish,
and sustain their numbers.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that the thing that you hate about commercial fishing is that it's lazy, but I found it was pretty shocking because it was either really like lazy and large scale, or incredibly intimate and personal. Like watching them in Taiji in the Cove, or the whalers in Faroe Islands, like they're right up in these dolphins and whales, like stabbing them in the gut, and you're like, geez, this is like intense. Straight up murder, man.
It's very intense.
And the water's so bloody.
I don't know if we mentioned it, but it was, but they were, at first it was this idea of like not knowing why they were killing the dolphins, and then they discovered that it was because the dolphins were competition. Eating the fish that they're trying to catch, and
that was weird logic. I don't
know if that's true or they just guessed that, but
the really pretty ones, I learned in the Cove, they sell to the. And they mentioned it in this movie. Right. But if they're about to kill one and they see it's really beautiful, they're like, ooh, $100,000.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. They'll sell them to SeaWorld and that sort of thing.
Isn't that just a funny, beauty in every aspect of life will get you so far? Like you're literally grabbing a dolphin and you're like,
but will it get you so far?
Look at those eyes.
It's like, it's like,
it gets you to another prison. It's like being
like a really sexy porn actress, and then after a while you're like, this is not a good business for me to be in. I think it's the same thing. SeaWorld is like dolphin porn. It's just the way they treat them.
It's true.
Not that I want to diminish the sex industry and blah, 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 all that sort of thing. I'm just saying sometimes it can be a bit rough, I think.
Yeah, for sure. No, you're right.
But yeah, I think that the idea of, but I say it's lazy, like the idea of like the trawling, the nets and all that. And I just think it's this idea of almost like, that's the sin of sloth. Like it's the sin of instead of using what you need, that you just pick everything up and then you throw out the things you don't need, and it's sloth, and it's also what's the other one where you engorge yourself with food? The
gluttony.
Gluttony. It's like a combination of like sloth and gluttony.
I know all this from the film Seven.
That's the only.
I'm not a Bible
enthusiast. No, I know that. Yeah. I knew, and it's not long ago I watched it again, so nice. Should be fresh.
Holds
in my
up.
Mind. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then but I don't know. I still think it's like there's too many of us. I think that's we're just like, this is it's like COVID that is like the world saying, all right, enough of you.
Yeah. Regarding Seven, I know it's a tangent and I'll move on quick, but it's cool to watch old Kevin Spacey movies again because they're even creepier now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he kind of just added a new element of creepiness that we didn't know was there.
Yeah.
We had a sense.
Oh, here's something. There's two things I want to mention before I forget. Mm-hmm. I want to come back to those blue check marks you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Thing I wrote down because it made me laugh, and a New York Times article that I read mentioned it as well. So I was like, I'm glad somebody else noticed this. But his conspiratorial tones, at least twice, maybe 3 times in the movie, he said, I knew I had to follow the money.
Oh, right.
When somebody didn't talk to him, he's like, I had to follow the money, like all the president's men or type thing. Like, it's just like such a classic line. It was like, you can say that once in a movie.
Yeah. Well, it was there were actually periods in the film where I felt like saying, oh, this is almost like this is some kind of a conspiracy involving the sea. It's like over and over again. I wanted to say another version of, does it feel like this is some kind of a conspiracy in which the sea is involved?
They really did go hard on the conspiracy element. Yeah. The music playing.
Yeah. And that's where you start to feel like, well, I feel my intelligence is insulted by how you're trying to manipulate my emotions. Don't worry, the slaughtering of these animals, these sweet animals, will be enough for me, thanks.
But imagine you were 20 years old and naive and idealistic, and this was your first time even thinking about this, because you were just eating fish fillets, living in your, beautiful little blissful world.
True. It's true. Listen, I'm glad I have this knowledge. I'm glad that it means I don't have to eat fish anymore.
Those blue ticks, though, those blue check marks.
Yeah.
That did seem like a load of bullshit. The people from that organization.
Oh, that's right.
There was initials for whatever they were called.
Yeah. It's like MC.
Marine Stewardship Council, MSC.
MSC. Yeah, it was. Yeah, just the fact that it was there, and I've heard that it can be just pretty much. As long as you can name the right price, you can buy your way into getting one of those.
Like getting one on Instagram.
Yeah. It's a verified. That's right.
Yeah.
You're MSC verified.
Yeah.
I still don't have one. So but I do, by the way, just to finish that thought, because I just realized there was another thing about this idea of like him always pumping up the conspiracy. I liked it when he would do things like where he said he's like, well, they wouldn't let us in, so we went in with spy cameras, and it's just like good resolution, autofocus, and I'm thinking like, oh, a spy camera? You mean like your iPhone?
Yeah.
Spy cameras. Yeah, you just look like you're scrolling. That's all you got to do. That's a spy camera. Here, there you go. This is actually what I love to do. Is if I've got see if the camera's right there. If I've got a pocket,
remember,
you just have it like that, and that's your spy camera right there.
That Simpsons episode where Homer has the big cowboy hat on with the camera in it.
It's a giant camera.
Yeah. I'm sorry, sir. Your hat is buzzing. I don't know if I'm allowed to do an Indian accent.
Yeah, you're not actually.
Let's just end the episode.
Yeah, maybe cut that one out.
Wasn't that a weird anomalous stat when he said that during the 15 years of the Iraq War, 5,000 American soldiers died, but during that same amount of time, 360,000 fisheries workers died? I was like, why'd we bring the Iraq War into this? You could have just told me that a lot of people died working at fisheries.
Yeah, really.
Why are we comparing it to the... I just didn't understand it. It was like...
Because you got to support the troops.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's appealing to people who say, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm in the Iraq War. That was pretty... that was a tough one. Oh, wow, look at that. In comparison to that, I thought the Iraq War was bad.
Yeah, I got to take this bumper sticker off and put a support the fisheries bumper sticker on my car.
Just
and get
put
mad
it
at
top.
Yeah, get mad at pundits on TV who don't support the fisheries.
That's that might start happening more. You're going to start to hear more of that sort of thing. People.
Do you know, actually, I have 2 cruise ship stories that now come together on this train of thought. One is the very last cruise I did before I made the decision I was never going to do another one. I got into my cabin on my first day on this cruise ship as we were docked in Florida. And on my bed, they must have had to give a notice to everybody on the ship as part of some court settlement they had. Mm-hmm. But the cruise line I was working for, Carnival, had just settled a lawsuit because they had hurt the environment. I don't know what they had done. I forgot. Right. So there's a piece of paper letting everybody who came on the ship know that they had just settled for like $500 million with the government of... I don't think it was U.S. It might have been. But so like I already was so jaded on working for this terrible industry and company. And I get in and like on my first day I see, oh, cool, I'm working for a company that just had to settle for $1 billion or $500 million because they're destroying the environment. Who's ready for some jokes? Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really kind of riff on that, can you, on stage?
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
You really can't. Because you'll be kicked.
I wonder what it was. I wonder if they were like dumping sewage into the ocean.
They do so much weird shit. I even think about just how many foreign laborers they have, like how much of the, people working in the kitchen, the maids and all those people, they're all from Philippines, India, right. Because they can pay them, because they're not incorporated in America, these companies. They're incorporated in
international waters.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm not going to say it's the same as these slave ships that are fishing, but it's... These big corporations do whatever they can get away with. So.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think like they keep these cruises cheap, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you see the clientele.
That
wasn't very. I'm not going to be a ist. What kind of ist is it?
There's very nice people who go on cruises.
No, of course there are. No, I forgot. 10,000 Sea Shepherd said 10,000 dolphins killed in bycatch. I guess that's like a year.
That's it, huh?
A year? Is that what it is?
50 million sharks a year, and we're only killing 10,000 dolphins?
They kill 45 dolphins to catch 8 tuna. That's a dolphin-safe tuna for you.
Yeah. Well, I think they said in the Cove that a lot of tuna you eat has dolphin in it, if I remember correctly. Because with bycatch, they're not always separating it. Because that was another thing I read. The stat on bycatch is inaccurate because there's a difference between discard and bycatch. So a lot of the bycatch they actually keep. They didn't intend to keep.
But they just grind it up?
I think so. I think that's the distinction between... Because discard is actually worse because you're throwing it back in dead.
So that's why the dolphin safe tuna doesn't taste as good.
Tastes better once you get a taste for it.
Yeah. So
the dead human bodies on the slave ship that they said, that the guys who worked on that Thai fishing ship, and they said they were just dead bodies in the fridge in the bottom, like dead human bodies of people who worked on it. There's some like heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's dark. I know. It's again, thank goodness I don't like fish that much to begin with.
So one time I didn't fish much growing up. I didn't have that kind of thing with my dad where we went fishing or anything, you know. But I went fishing with my girlfriend's dad when I was like 20 years old, and he taught me how to kill a fish. And we went fishing, caught a bunch in the canoe. I had like beginner's luck. I caught a few big ones. Came back to their dock of their cottage, and he said, "You want to like stand it up and hit it on the back of the head with your canoe paddle." And so I did, and I just wasn't hitting the right spot on the fish, I guess. And I hit this fish over and over. I'm talking like my arm was tired like 100 times before it died. And that's always stuck with me. I was like, I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
But I kept eating fish. I kept eating meat, so it doesn't matter just because I know
that is the funny thing, isn't it? That is like, I'd never kill a thing, but I'll eat it. If you kill it, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do the killing.
Yeah, just that absolving of your own personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Close your eyes.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to do. I'm guilty of it.
Well, it's easy to do. We were just talking about supporting the troops. It's easy to live our comfortable life here and not think about the sacrifices people are making all around the world. It just...
True.
You just put your blinders on.
But are they making sacrifices for us, or are they making sacrifices for oil?
I mean...
Anyway, that's another...
No, you're right. It's a gray area all around. And then you're like, does the government even care about us, or do they just want to control power for their own nefarious purposes? It's too much for my puny civilian brain to handle. I'll just... Yeah.
Catching this?
What?
Can you hear it outside?
What is it?
Oh, just sorry. That reaction was because there's screaming going on outside.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
No, my mic is just picking you up.
You don't hear that?
No, because I got my hearing aid mic connected.
Yeah, I know.
to that.
I know. That's what I'm thinking. Like if I quiet, maybe you can hear. No, they were literally screaming at the top of the lungs as they walked by. So I was a little distracted. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, I'll just tell the people I have like a mic so that I can hear Alex's voice directly into my hearing aid right now, which is very convenient for hearing you, not convenient for hearing screaming passersby.
Anything at all, yeah, because it doesn't pick up. It only picks up local.
Yeah. Was it like a cry for help?
No, they were just crazy. Just having fun like kids would be, but it sounded like adults. So but the sea turtles, I was going to say like about 250,000 a year are captured or killed. I got that quote, that fact. Also, there's all about the straws. Don't take a straw. Nobody's talking about the nets. Like there are so many more that are actually killed because of these nets. And there was so much talk about nets and plastic from nets. It was almost like it was the plastic that we put out into the world is not really that big a deal.
I know. He did focus on the fisheries so much.
Made it almost feel like, you know what, I don't have to worry about this plastic thing as long as I just don't eat fish. It almost felt like that, which again, it's like, well, don't downplay the fact that we still have, I think, a problem with plastics.
Yeah, single-use plastic.
Yeah.
Although that one scene was so like, I mean, I don't know what to call it, but when he calls that restaurant and he was like,
Yeah,
would
he's
you
always calling people up for our benefit.
What did he say? Would you consider like not using plastic straws or something?
Yeah.
And then they just hung up on him. He's like, hello?
I love it. I know that. I know just for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something that I read as we inch closer, I think, towards the end here, right? We're probably...
I think so.
Let me tell you something I read from a website that really encapsulated how I feel, and they put it very succinctly, and it was from a website called The Tartan, and I'm not going to put the link in the description because my computer said not secure when I was on this site. So, I mean, I'm willing to get viruses for this show, Alex. So here's what they described about Tabrizi, Ali Tabrizi, and I agree with this 100%. Throughout the documentary, Tabrizi came across as an arrogant Westerner. It is important to note that most of the countries he visited and criticized were developing countries such as Liberia or Thailand. While it is true there are many labor issues in developing countries, some as extreme as slavery, Tabrizi never mentions the history of colonization in these countries as to put these practices into context. Furthermore, it is never mentioned that most of the demand for fish comes from the West, which is driving worker exploitation in the East. It is not surprising that Tabrizi seems to have a flawed perspective. As Brian Kahn from Gizmodo says, he comes off as, I alone can fix this problem I have only recently learned about. And that solution is my preferred method. Rather than letting the research speak for itself, Tabrizi opted to center himself in the narrative. This method only works if the documentarian is likable, and unfortunately, Tabrizi is not.
Ooh, ouch, Tabrizi, you are on notice.
You just got tartaned.
It's hard to disagree with any of that. And one of the things I did notice in some other things I read where they did mention the fact that all the people interviewed were all white.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. There was that.
What is that true? He mentioned the slaves. I guess all the experts were, but the people who were slaves on the fishing boat were Thai.
Yeah, maybe. I think that maybe that, but I think we're talking about the experts.
Yeah.
There were no fisheries scientists. This is one marine biologist, his criticism. There were no fisheries scientists being... I mean, that's the thing is it was like a lot of scientists who just are working at the, it's like science is hard, and it's not, and it's a bit dry. And so I think that it wasn't really to his, in his favor to do that for the drama of the piece, to actually delve into real science. So that's the problem is it's like a lot of stuff was using facts that he could, even outdated facts and all that sort of thing. There was that complaint, or exaggerations or links that were made that didn't exist. So it ends. And again, what the problem is that there are some good messages in there, but what happens is when you're sloppy journalistically, then you then become a less reliable source, and then people can go, well, I mean, if that's wrong, then I don't have to listen to the rest of it. And so in a way, you're sort of doing a disservice. It's interesting, almost to compare how much he can help a cause by bringing it to light, by making it that way, but how much, is it more damaging in the long run, or is it actually better in the long run that he just put it out there and made it very palatable for a lot of people?
And what do you think the answer is for Seaspiracy?
I just asked the questions.
I think in the long run, this is better. I think if this sparks a dialogue around commercial fishing and all these sorts of topics he brought up, like slave or what's it called, blood shrimp.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if that term's going to catch on.
No.
But I'd never thought of the fact that people are working, essentially as slaves to catch our shrimp and prawns.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of shrimp, so I feel really okay with that.
I ate a lot of shrimp.
Okay with not eating it. Blood shrimp. It's funny. I guess if there was any kind of slave trade around oranges, it would kind of spoil it because you can't call them blood oranges because that's already been taken.
I just always assumed every blood orange I ate that it came from slavery.
Yeah, no, I really want to apologize for that last thing. I don't feel good about that one.
No, nor should you. It's a delicate thing when you're trying to be funny, especially in these modern times. You can tell people you have empathy all you want, but then you make one joke and they're like, does he have empathy?
No.
Joking about slavery?
No.
People's lives? Yeah, no, you definitely crossed the line with that one.
And
then I built on it. I yes-anded your treachery.
You really did treachery. Yes-anding the treachery.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with Seaspiracy? I feel like there was so much, and I...
Yeah, so this was the thing where the dramatic music came in and they were showing a Chinese trawler. Trawler. Farm fishing they were talking about, and they were talking about how it's also kind of wild fishing, really, as well. They also have to, feed the fish with other fish.
Yeah.
So now they're fishing smaller fish to feed the bigger fish. So there's that issue. And then sea lice that the salmon eat.
Well, the sea lice they were showing, that was at the Scottish fishery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they said they died of sea lice, and it looked horrific. But then they said they died from other stuff, too.
Yeah, they said there were 50% of salmon dying from anemia, chlamydia, and heart disease. I was like, whoa, wait a second. You skipped over one quickly there. What's that? Chlamydia.
You can't put chlamydia in the middle. That's a list ender.
Yeah, exactly. Chlamydia. And then let me have some comment on the chlamydia, which I don't envy that fish. I hope that fish got the medication I once got.
Is it contagious? Like if I eat one of these chlamydia-ridden salmon? I'm not even joking. Like,
I don't know. I'll tell you what. It certainly is a good cover if you ever get it.
I ate some bad salmon.
Watch Seaspiracy, honey, before you start accusing me of anything.
I know I've been spending a lot of time with my secretary, but we eat salmon, so...
Together.
Did you see the part where the scientist near the end, that was like the one laugh in the movie where he talked about herring, how they fart to communicate?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, he enjoyed that one.
That was good.
Yeah, that was a good little one.
You and I, we're a lot like herrings.
Yeah, we are actually. I wonder but we don't, I don't necessarily use it to communicate, but it does create a lot of conflicting communication after I've done it.
Yes, exactly. Or lack of communication because they've left.
Yeah, it usually shuts down communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I don't even have to fart, and the very idea of it becomes kind of like a red herring. You know what I mean? Did I use red herring correctly? I was really reaching for it.
I was going to say, I don't think that's... Yeah, we might have to...
Hey, listen, I tried. Give me some points for trying.
You get points. We'll do a rework and maybe see if we can insert it back in.
Yeah, and then what does Sylvie Earle say? She's like, anyone can do it. One.
You.
Like, you.
You're one.
One, yeah.
What about this guy? How about two? How about him?
Oh, no, he can't do it.
Just you. So, yeah, that was I guess, the sum up. I felt the documentary was powerful in the sense that like it did affect a lot of people, and I think it is good people are aware of this sort of thing, but it was a bit trashy. Yeah,
it was a bit it was really going for the drama and the putting himself in the middle of it, and but overall I think it's a positive. If it, like I said, if it gets people talking and thinking about it, that's all you can hope for.
Well, he's making sure of it. I just read an article from a day ago that he's like putting up billboards and trying to collect kind of a GoFundMe type of thing where he's collecting
classic
money.
Ali.
He's gonna build on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wants to try to really, I guess, take the governments to task by trying to get the word out there. I mean, that's not a bad thing either. I mean, if people, the problem with people will watch a movie like this and maybe make some changes, but in terms of like actually getting it out there where it's now, it now looks like it's out there in public, it then becomes something that politicians have to at least pay some lip service to.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If he does create any sort of movement with it, then it's all worth it.
Mm.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
But I mean, we still have capitalism, so not much will change.
That's exactly right. Somebody brought that up in an article too, where I forget exactly how they framed it, but he was like telling people to like beat capitalism with capitalism.
That's right.
Yeah, it was like, well, it's still the same machine. Like we're not. Yeah. Anyway, I don't see any way out of capitalism here in North America, at least. So Any fight is futile. That's what I always say.
All right. Well, I guess stop eating fish, but we're doomed anyway.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, what a message.
From it. Okay. Well, that was fun. I think that flowed nicely. You know.
Yeah. Let's pat ourselves on the back at the end of each one of these.
I think that was great.
Yeah.
No, but we're only 3 episodes deep, so I think it's okay to really say, no, I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't lie. If I didn't like it, I would say, you know what? I think we should probably call it a day here.
Let's, I think we peaked at 3 and let's call it a day. Yeah.
No, it's fun. We're hanging out. We're talking about serious stuff, but it's fun to, the blood orange joke was too far. We can both say that.
Sure. But I think it's repeatable for sure. Use it at parties. Let me know how it goes.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Next week, we're going to be watching Pele on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I know we're very deep into the episode now, but I don't know if I mentioned it. Seaspiracy is also on Netflix.
That's right.
I think I mentioned it, but I don't know. Pele next week is on Netflix in America. I don't know about the rest of the world, but in America, Netflix. So watch that. Join us next week. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a rating, a review on iTunes.
Please.
Anything helps.
Yeah, rating, review, comments, text them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, text me, us. It's our number.
Okay.
707-506-6257. Thanks for the reminder, buddy.
No problem.
I'll send you any message they send me.
Okay, good.
Thanks for watching, guys. This is Alex and DJ Watch a Doc. That's Alex.
That's DJ.
See you later.
Take it easy.